My sister manipulated my parents into abandoning me on our family vacation after I supported them through my father's heart attack. Now she's in jail and they're begging me. I'm 23F and I have a younger sister, Lisa, 18F, who I genuinely believe is the very definition of evil. For years I've tried to convince my parents to see her true nature, but they never believed me, at least not until now. To give some background, my relationship with my parents has always been a bit strained, largely because of Lisa. They absolutely adored her, especially since my mother had suffered a miscarriage before Lisa was born. That loss devastated her, and when Lisa came along a few years later, she was seen as their miracle child, the ray of hope that mended their grief. From then on, my parents spoiled her with endless affection and attention, making her the center of our family's world. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved my little sister when we were kids, but over time, I began to notice something unsettling. Lisa had a remarkable gift for manipulation, one that my parents couldn't recognize. She knew how to twist situations to her advantage and had mastered the art of playing the victim. One incident that still haunts me happened on my birthday. Our grandparents had given me an antique pocket watch, a treasured family heirloom. I was thrilled, especially after my grandmother explained its history. Lisa, however, was clearly envious. She kept pestering me to let her use it, but I refused. It was my birthday gift. When she turned to our parents, they couldn't force me since it came from our grandparents. That night, Lisa, fully aware of my fear of spiders, slipped one into my pillowcase. I woke up in horror, feeling the creature crawl across my skin, and screamed. My parents rushed into my room while Lisa put on her best shocked, caring act. But later, when we were alone, she smirked and admitted she'd done it to teach me a lesson. She said it so casually, without the slightest shred of remorse, that it chilled me to the core. Another time, I had finally worked up the courage to invite my crush, Mark, over to watch a movie. I was nervous but excited, even dressing up in hopes of impressing him. Just as he arrived, Lisa accidentally spilled a glass of juice all over me, laughing while I scrambled to change. Humiliated. To make matters worse, she spent the rest of the evening telling Mark embarrassing childhood stories about me, never leaving us alone. As if her sabotage wasn't enough, when Mark was heading out, Lisa sneered and told him he could do much better than me. Mark, visibly uncomfortable, left quickly. I was stunned by how deliberately cruel and calculating she could be. Over the years I tried to warn my parents about her behavior, but they always brushed it off, saying she was just young and immature. They refused to see her true nature. Every time I complained, I was dismissed as the troublemaker, while Lisa remained their golden child. Eventually, I stopped speaking up altogether. She continued basking in their favoritism, while I, the straightforward one, constantly felt like the outsider in my own family. I threw myself into my studies and managed to get into a good university, which gave me the chance to finally move out. Life felt lighter away from home, but during breaks, whenever I returned, Lisa made it clear she resented me being there. She would go out of her way to ignore me, refusing to even make small talk. At family dinners, she'd avoid sitting near me, and if I spoke, she'd cut me off or change the subject. Her constant efforts to belittle me made my visits suffocating. On top of that, she would tamper with my things, pretending she just needed to borrow them, only to damage or lose them later. When I confronted my parents, they dismissed my concerns and urged us to get along, so I started avoiding home altogether. Instead of returning during breaks, I'd stay with friends or spend time with their families. Honestly, my parents didn't seem to care much. They chalked it up to me being independent and enjoying life away from home. When Lisa finished high school, she didn't have the grades for university, so she enrolled in community college. That meant she never had to move out of our parents' house. These days, I work at a multinational corporation in San Francisco, and I genuinely enjoy my job. I sometimes keep in touch with my parents, though I rarely visit home, and I have absolutely no contact with Lisa. Now, coming to the heart of the story, my father recently suffered a near-fatal heart attack. Thankfully, by some miracle, he survived and was rushed to the hospital. When my mother called me with the news, I immediately booked a ticket and flew home to be with them. The doctors prescribed several medications and strongly advised my father to start exercising. Since being discharged, he has expressed a desire to spend more time together as a family, often saying how lucky he was to have survived. I understood his feelings, so I stayed at their house for a few days. My job allows me to work remotely, so it wasn't an issue. Still, I couldn't help but notice Lisa seemed extremely irritated by my presence. I tried to avoid her as much as possible since we were older now, and I had no desire to argue after our dad's health scare. One morning at breakfast, my father suggested that we all go on a family vacation, since it had been years since we'd traveled together. At first I had my doubts, but knowing how important it was to him, I agreed. Lisa wasn't exactly enthusiastic, but she had no choice but to go along with the plan. My father made all the flight and accommodation arrangements. I had planned my leave from work in advance and even told my colleagues not to contact me, determined to enjoy quality time with my parents. However, when we arrived at the airport, I discovered that my ticket had been canceled. Confused, I exchanged looks with my father, who kept insisting he had booked and paid for it. When we checked further, it turned out that, out of the 4 tickets, mine had mysteriously been the only one canceled. As I stood there trying to process what was happening, I glanced at Lisa. She had a sly smile on her face, the same look she always wore when she'd managed to pull off one of her twisted little schemes. I knew instantly that she had canceled my ticket, probably using our father's computer. I confronted her, yelling, while she just stood there smirking. I pointed it out to my parents, insisting it was Lisa's doing since she never wanted me to join the trip. But instead of believing me, my mother dismissed my claim outright, saying, "Your sister would never do something like that." She accused me of being jealous and insisted it was just a freak accident. My father, too, tried to justify it, suggesting it might have been an airline mistake, and told me not to blame Lisa. I was beyond frustrated that they refused to believe their so-called miracle child could be behind such deception. At that point, there was nothing I could do. My ticket was already canceled, and there were no other flights available that day. While I could have booked one for the following day, I hated the thought of returning home, buying another ticket, and traveling alone for what was supposed to be a family trip. On top of that, the idea of sharing a room with Lisa filled me with dread. If she had gone so far as to sabotage my ticket, who knew what else she had planned to make my life miserable during the trip? At first, my father hesitated, suggesting that maybe we could all go back home and plan another vacation later. But then he started talking about how long it had been since he'd taken a proper trip. My mother quickly agreed, saying that I travel a lot for work anyway, so missing this one wouldn't matter much. Their words cut deep. It felt like they were waiting for me to tell them to just go without me. So I told them they were welcome to continue with their vacation if that's what they wanted. To my disappointment, they readily agreed. Though I didn't want the money they'd spent on tickets and hotel rooms to go to waste, I was heartbroken that they didn't seem to care whether I joined or not. It became painfully clear that they were perfectly content to go on this family vacation as a family of 3. And there I was, left standing alone at the airport as my parents and Lisa headed off on their much-anticipated vacation. I decided to go back to my apartment in San Francisco rather than spend a lonely day in the family house. I tried to move past what had happened and focus on enjoying the rest of my leave from work. I reconnected with old friends and lost myself in books, turning my break into a quiet, personal retreat. During the trip, my parents would occasionally video call me, and I could see how much fun they were having without me. It was as if my absence didn't matter at all. While I wasn't heartbroken about missing the vacation itself, I couldn't ignore the sting of exclusion. It was just another reminder of the favoritism that had always plagued our family dynamic. I secretly hoped that someday they would finally see Lisa for who she really was. That hope came sooner than I expected. A few days into their trip, I woke up to several missed calls from my mother. Terrified that my father's health had suddenly declined, I called her back immediately. She answered, but her voice trembled with panic. She explained that something disturbing had happened. My father's essential heart medications had been vanishing day by day. This was terrifying considering his fragile condition. He couldn't afford to miss a single dose. To make matters worse, they were abroad and didn't know whether the same medication could even be obtained outside the U.S. They searched their room thoroughly, but the pills were nowhere to be found. Then, while Lisa was out, my mother went into her room next door to borrow sunscreen. To her horror, she found all of my father's missing medication hidden neatly inside Lisa's bedside table. Shocked and trembling, she immediately called my father into the room. Together, they confirmed that every pill that had disappeared in the past few days was right there. It was in that chilling moment they finally saw the truth. Their beloved miracle child had been deliberately endangering my father's health, my mother's, voice cracked as she asked me if they should confront Lisa. I told her not to, at least not until they returned home. They needed time to gather their thoughts, control their emotions, and have undeniable evidence ready before confronting her. I knew Lisa too well. She was a master manipulator who could twist any confrontation to her advantage. If they challenged her too soon, she'd come up with excuses or lies to escape accountability. But something unexpected must have happened, because later that night, I got a trembling call from my father. His voice shook as he told me Lisa was in jail. I was stunned. He recounted how, when they confronted her about the medication, she exploded in rage. She screamed, hurled insults, and even started throwing objects around the room. Most of her fury was directed at my father, accusing him of buying me a ticket in the first place. She ranted that I never should have been allowed to join them and threatened that if they kept a relationship with me, she'd teach them a lesson they'd never forget. Her tantrums spiraled out of control until hotel staff called the police. When the officers arrived, Lisa refused to calm down and insulted them too, leading to her arrest. She was released after 24 hours, but there was nothing my parents could do during that time. Desperate to leave after her release, they tried to reschedule their flight, only to discover their passports and wallets were missing. It turned out Lisa had either destroyed them or hidden them, leaving my parents stranded in a foreign country with no money and no identification. For the first time, my parents were forced to confront who their daughter truly was. My mother, who had defended Lisa for years, broke down over the phone. She begged me to help, sobbing that they had no money or documents to fly back home. Overwhelmed and shaken, she confessed how devastated she was to finally see the dark reality of the daughter she had once called her angel. I reassured her that I would send money through Western Union, but reminded them they needed to locate their passports before they could return. I was certain Lisa hadn't destroyed them, and had simply hidden them as another act of control. At last, my parents realized I had been telling the truth all along. They admitted how grateful they were for my help, even after excluding me from the vacation. They apologized for not believing me before. And while a part of me wanted to forgive them, it was hard to forget the years I'd been dismissed, doubted, and pushed aside in favor of my sister. It's difficult because I can't shake the feeling that I've been deprived of my parents' love for years because of their favoritism toward my sister, so I don't feel guilty for not forgiving them when they chose to go on that vacation without me, only to come back begging for my help once they finally got a taste of Lisa's true nature. Every day my parents call me with new updates, and I'm growing increasingly anxious about their situation. After Lisa was released from jail, my parents threatened to call the authorities again unless she returned their passports. Backed into a corner, Lisa finally revealed where she had hidden them. When they returned home, my parents confronted her directly, telling her it was time to pack her belongings and move out. They had finally reached their breaking point, realizing that her manipulative and dangerous actions, like stealing my father's medication, couldn't be ignored anymore. This confrontation quickly escalated into another screaming match. Lisa hurled accusations at my parents, raging that she didn't want to share them with me. She claimed that inviting me on the trip had pushed her over the edge, insisting they should disown me because she was enough for both of them. At that moment, my parents finally saw the depth of her jealousy and the extent of her resentment toward me. But Lisa didn't stop there. In her desperation, she threatened to spread lies about being neglected and mistreated as a child. She said she'd go to the police with false statements if they kept insisting she move out. This terrified my parents, both respected doctors in the community, because even unfounded allegations could ruin their reputations. The thought of their professional lives being destroyed by Lisa's fabricated stories left them shaken and fearful. In the following days, Lisa's behavior only worsened. When she realized my parents were speaking to me more regularly, she exploded, smashing dishes in anger. She began hiding their car keys to keep them from getting to work on time. Just tonight, my mother called me in tears after another incident. Lisa had demanded that she cook dinner. When my mother refused, exhausted from work, Lisa threw a tantrum, breaking furniture before blasting music at full volume, keeping them awake all night. The situation is spiraling, taking a heavy toll on my parents emotionally and mentally. I worry she could become a real danger to them. As much as I want to return home, I know my presence might push her into even more violent outbursts. For now, I'm urging my parents to consult with a lawyer and explore permanent legal solutions. It seems like the only way to truly protect them and bring peace back into their lives. As many predicted, Lisa has now been arrested again. With her behavior escalating, it was only a matter of time. During a heated argument, she came at our parents with a knife. Terrified, they had no choice but to call the police. The officers quickly took her into custody and charged her with assault. Afterward, my parents realized they needed a long-term solution. They met with an attorney, who guided them through the legal steps to evict Lisa from their home. They filed a formal eviction notice, laying out the reasons and timeline for her removal. Though difficult, it was the only way to ensure their safety. They didn't want to press additional charges. They just wanted her out. So after bailing her out of jail, they formally handed her the eviction papers, carefully following the law so she couldn't contest it. Next, they went to court with their lawyer to begin the eviction lawsuit. It wasn't easy for them to take legal action against their own daughter, but they knew it was necessary. This was all extremely difficult for my parents, since it meant taking their own daughter to court. They felt heartbroken, guilty, and as if they had no other option. Eventually, the court issued an official order stating that Lisa had to vacate the house. If she refused, they would have the legal right to force her off the property. By next week, Lisa will be gone, and my parents can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Though it's been a long and painful journey, their hopeful life will improve once she's no longer under their roof. I've stayed in close contact with them throughout this ordeal and plan to bring them to San Francisco for a few weeks. They need a break, a change of scenery, and time to recover from the stress Lisa has put them through. It will also give us a chance to spend quality time together, and I want to support them as much as I can. I've received hundreds of comments on my post, and it's taken a while to read through them all. Many people suggested that Lisa may be dealing with a serious mental health issue. The challenge is that she's an adult, and we can't legally force her to seek treatment. Given her violent outbursts, we're worried pushing her could make things worse. As I mentioned before, my parents flew down to San Francisco to spend some time with me. After everything they endured these last few months, they desperately needed the break. Last night, while sitting around my small dining table, they finally opened up. Their voices were filled with humility and regret, as they admitted how blind they had been to Lisa's true nature. They begged for my forgiveness. My father spoke first, apologizing for ignoring my warnings all these years. He confessed that he never imagined Lisa would become this way, and that he couldn't see through her carefully crafted facade. My mother echoed his words, her voice trembling as she admitted how painful it was to realize she had failed me by favoring Lisa. She acknowledged the mistake of brushing off my concerns for so long. I told them I appreciated them taking the first step toward repairing our relationship. I also shared some of the painful memories I had carried alone for years. Moments when Lisa humiliated me or manipulated them against me. They listened in shock, horrified by the extent of what I had endured. They admitted their favoritism toward Lisa had clouded their judgment from the start, especially since they always saw her as their miracle baby. With sincerity, they begged again for forgiveness. It was a bittersweet moment. For so long I had wanted acknowledgement, and while this wasn't the way I envisioned healing, it was a turning point. For the first time in years, we faced the truth together. I told them it would take time to rebuild trust, but we agreed to work through it as a family. For now, I want to make the most of this visit with them and hold on to the honesty and clarity we've finally found. As the days passed, my parents and I spent time exploring the vibrant streets of San Francisco, sharing relaxed meals, and simply enjoying each other's company. It has been a journey of slowly stitching our family back together after years of favoritism and denial. I've realized their decision to come here wasn't just about escaping Lisa. It was also about starting fresh and rebuilding what we almost lost. We've also had serious conversations about Lisa. Right now, she's staying at a friend's house. We can't abandon her completely, no matter how much damage she's caused. My parents still feel a deep responsibility for her as their daughter, even though her actions have been unforgivable. We've come to accept that her behavior may not just be willful cruelty, it may very well be a sign of deeper issues. We plan to explore the possibility of a proper mental health evaluation to better understand what might be driving her behavior. However, since Lisa is an adult, we can't force her into an assessment. Instead, we're trying to find a way to gently encourage her to seek help on her own terms. My parents intend to reach out to her once they return home, to see if she's open to having a calm discussion. As for me, I've decided not to contact her directly. Lisa still harbors a strong grudge against me, and I don't want to inflame the situation or risk triggering more hostility, especially when her mental state is so fragile. Considering her past aggression and violent outbursts, I've urged my parents to meet her only in a public place, where she'll be more likely to keep her emotions under control. Our main goal isn't to place blame, but to help Lisa understand our perspective and, most importantly, to recognize the deep love and concern we still have for her. This is about finding a way to move forward as a family, addressing the wounds that have fractured our relationships, and seeking a path toward healing.